Welcome to Starbound, where every star tells a story. Have you ever pondered what cosmic encounters lie hidden within uncharted asteroid fields? Let's get into the story. Captain Jamie Moore was not a sentimental man. Years of asteroid mining had hardened his resolve, replacing youthful idealism with a pragmatic understanding of corporate realities. Survival in the unforgiving depths of space demanded efficiency, not compassion. His ship, the Reach, was a testament to this philosophy, a battered, utilitarian vessel optimized for resource extraction, not luxury. Yet the hum of daily operations couldn't entirely drown out the persistent undercurrent of monotony that came with carving a living from these desolate rocks. Jamie leaned back in his worn command chair, a sigh escaping his lips as he surveyed the dull reports flashing across the screens. Automated drills carved into the lifeless expanse of yet another asteroid days blending into one another. Boredom was a constant adversary in the vast expanse. Something had to give. "Captain," the comm crackled, the voice of his navigator Anya breaking through the silence. "We're picking up something odd on long range. Unknown composition, large, shaped like a..." Jamie straightened in his seat, years of tedium melting away in an instant. "Shaped like what?" "Well, sir, it looks like a snaggart, a big one." Leaving his chair, Jamie strode to the holo display. Indeed, the familiar, irregular form of a snaggart drifted amongst the swirling chaos of the asteroid field. Its silhouette dominated the sensor readings, casting a long shadow over the ship's planned route. These enigmatic creatures were the stuff of galactic legend, massive, reclusive. Their sightings were so rare they bordered on myth. No one understood their origins, their motives, only that they could devastate entire fields, and ships unlucky enough to cross their path. "A snaggart?" Jamie breathed, a mix of unease and fascination washing over him. This could be a disaster or an extraordinary opportunity. A murmur rippled through the command deck as the image solidified, the rough, rock-like exterior of the colossal form undeniable. Anya nervously eyed the creature's trajectory, her voice tight. "Shall I divert course, Captain?" Jamie drummed his fingers on the console, his mind racing. Company protocol was clear. Avoid contact with unknown life forms at all costs. But something about this snaggart was different. It appeared curiously static, unlike the relentless drift normally associated with their kind. "Hold course," he finally decided, ignoring the shocked gasp behind him. "But switch to passive scans. Let's see what this giant is up to." As the Reach cautiously approached, details began to emerge. It wasn't a single organism as initial readings suggested, but a massive, asteroid-like shell housing something smaller. Intrigued, Jamie ordered a closer approach. "Is it moving?" Anya whispered, her eyes glued to the screen. A rhythmic fluctuation, too subtle to detect from afar, now pulsated through the central mass of the snaggart-shaped formation. With a jolt of realization, Jamie understood. This wasn't a fully grown behemoth, but something far more vulnerable, a young snaggart. Whatever protective shell it had built around itself was faltering, the creature within struggling. "Full visual," Jamie ordered, his voice echoing in the silence. The holo display bloomed with startling detail. A small, segmented creature writhing within its rocky prison. It bore the distinctive armored hide of its kind, but its movements were panicked, desperate. Jamie's heart pounded in his chest, a mix of caution and an unexpected surge of empathy. All his life, he had heard stories of the snaggarts, dangerous, destructive anomalies of the deep void, yet here was one reduced to a helpless infant, its life fading before their very eyes. Anya broke the tense silence, her voice tinged with a mix of disbelief and urgency. "Captain, we can't leave it like that. It's just a baby." The words hung heavy in the air. Jamie knew she was right, morally, ethically, perhaps even biologically speaking, but the rational part of him shouted warnings. They were minors, not cosmic babysitters. Rescuing an unknown creature, possibly of a destructive species, was a potentially catastrophic risk. It could jeopardize their mission, their company contract, their lives. "Sir, we're receiving a weak distress signal," the comm officer chimed in, adding another layer of complication. "Definitely coming from inside." Jamie stared at the young creature, its frantic movements growing weaker by the minute. The choice was stark. Turn away and let nature, however cruel, take its course, or intervene and potentially change the fate of both their species. Rules existed for a reason, but this was beyond any textbook scenario. He clenched his jaw, a wave of determination washing over him as the decision settled like a heavy cloak. Prep a landing party, and get me medbay on the line. Tell them to ready the quarantine wing. We're going in. A ripple of mixed emotions, shock, nervousness, a flicker of undeniable excitement pulsed through the command deck. Each crew member knew the gravity of their captain's order. Jamie himself felt torn, a sense of calculated risk battling an underlying unease. He had gambled on many things in his life, pushing boundaries for profit and survival. But this felt different. This was a gamble on the fundamental question of who they were as a species. Not just miners chasing profit, but beings capable of compassion even amidst the vast, cold reaches of space. Anya, ever the voice of reason, cautiously interjected. "Sir, with all due respect, wouldn't it be safer to let it die out there, bringing an unknown creature on board?" Her voice trailed off, the unspoken implications hanging heavy. Jamie met her eyes with a resolute gaze. "Look, I get the risk. This could be a catastrophic mistake. But what kind of humans would we be if we turned our backs on something clearly in need? We take precautions, we do everything by the book, but we don't ignore a plea for help, not if we can do something about it." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Jamie's words struck a chord, a reminder of their shared humanity in an environment designed to strip that away. It was a gamble, but one they seemed instinctively, perhaps foolishly, willing to take. The landing party assembled with surprising efficiency, years of drills solidifying into purposeful action. Anya, a flicker of doubt clouding her usual calm, strapped into her envirosuit beside Jamie. "You're sure about this, Captain?" she asked, a faint tremor in her voice. Jamie nodded, not out of confidence, but out of necessity. "As sure as I've ever been. Besides, haven't you always wanted a little more excitement in your life?" A strained smile broke through his stern facade. The airlock hissed open, the stark blackness of space rushing in like an icy tide. Secured with tethers, Jamie and Anya cautiously descended onto the asteroid's pockmarked surface. Each step echoed with a hollow metallic ring, a reminder of the unnatural environment. As they approached the massive Snaggart shell, its sheer scale washed over them. Its rough, rock-like exterior pulsed in time with the rhythmic distress signal. A jagged fissure, large enough for a human to pass through, scarred its surface, a point of weakness in the otherwise impenetrable facade. With practiced care, Jamie and Anya inched their way into the opening. The cavernous interior was surprisingly well lit. A faint bioluminescent glow emanated from the walls, casting an eerie illumination over the space. It was unnaturally quiet. The rhythmic distress signal, amplified within the confined space, was the only sound cutting through the thick silence. The young Snaggart writhed at the center of the chamber, its segmented body thrashing against unseen constraints. Its armored plates were dull and brittle, signs of malnutrition or some unknown affliction. With each shuddering movement, another shower of dust and debris cascaded from its form, revealing deep lesions and a worrisome lack of its species' typical rock-like resilience. "It's worse off than we thought," Anya whispered, her voice barely audible within her helmet. "It might not even survive the trip back to the ship." Jamie's gut clenched. Their time was limited. "We can handle the medical side. Focus on getting it out of here." He unhooked a cutting torch from his tool belt and moved closer. As he approached, the Snaggart's panicked movements intensified. Multiple sets of eyes, glowing with a soft amber light, fixed upon them, not with the mindless hunger of a predator, but with a chilling flicker of intelligence and fear. "Easy there," Jamie murmured, working quickly but cautiously with the torch. The searing plasma sliced through the weakened shell with surprising ease, each hiss punctuated by a pained wriggle from the creature inside. Within minutes, a sizable opening had been created. The Snaggart, as if sensing a chance at freedom, surged towards the gap, sending a shower of rocky debris flying. Jamie and Anya braced themselves, but the creature did not attack. Instead, it slithered past them with surprising speed and agility, its movements now more purposeful than panicked. The young Snaggart paused at the cavern's edge, its body rippling before it launched itself into the airlock and out into the vast emptiness of space. Momentarily caught in the harsh glare of the Reach's spotlights, it seemed to hesitate, as if disoriented by the sudden change of surroundings. Jamie and Anya quickly followed, their tethers snapping taut as they emerged into the open. The creature floated in space, its armored segments flexing with a strange, exploratory rhythm. Jamie's breath hitched. He had never seen a snaggart, let alone a juvenile, move with this kind of controlled purpose. A flicker of movement caught his eye, a delicate tendril shimmering with bioluminescence snaked out from beneath a cracked armored plate. Its tip brushed tentatively against a nearby asteroid before swiftly retracting, as if testing the environment. Anya spoke over the comm, her voice a mix of awe and unease. It seems to be communicating. With the rock. Jamie stared, his mind racing through the implications. The snaggarts were known for their ability to manipulate rock and asteroids, but this was something else. A direct, almost sentient interaction. He reached out cautiously, his gloved fingers brushing an asteroid's surface. Nothing. They have a connection, he mumbled, the words barely escaping his lips. A bond we don't even begin to understand. The young snaggart seemed to sense his presence. Its glowing eyes turned towards him. With another ripple of movement, it propelled itself with uncanny grace towards the Reach, its tendril-like appendages dancing with a fluidity that belied its rock-like appearance. A tremor ran through the ship as the snaggart gently latched onto the hull. Inside the command deck, the crew watched in stunned silence as data streams flickered wildly, the ship's systems reacting to an alien presence unlike anything they had ever registered. "Sir!" The sensor officer's voice cut through the stunned silence. I don't understand. It's reading the ship's systems, mapping out the layout." Jamie exchanged a worried look with Anya. The snaggart's movements weren't merely random. It was exploring with intent, learning the intricacies of their vessel on a level no scan could replicate. This was more than mere curiosity. It was analysis. "Medbay reports they're ready. Shall I have them prepped for transfer?" Anya asked, a note of hesitation in her usually steady voice. Jamie rubbed his eyes, exhaustion washing over him. They had to move quickly, but with calculated caution. "On my mark, and have security meet us there, just in case." The trip to Medbay was a tense blur. The snaggart clung to the hull, seemingly unconcerned despite the blaring alarms and flashing emergency lights. As they entered the quarantined wing, armed guards took up positions, weapons trained on the sealed entrance hatch. Jamie hoped their presence was more for reassurance than actual necessity. "Captain," the lead medic greeted him, a woman named Harper with a no-nonsense demeanor that commanded respect even in their dire circumstances. "We have an extra-large containment unit prepped, isolation protocols in effect." Jamie nodded, signaling for the hatch to be opened. Within flooded the harsh, sterile light of the medical bay, casting long shadows on the gleaming metallic floor. The young snaggart recoiled momentarily before surging forward with a speed that belied its earlier frailty. It circled the containment unit with surprising agility, its tendrils delicately brushing the smooth surface. It likes it," Harper breathed, a hint of amazement breaking through her clinical facade. "It seems to recognize the purpose of this space." Anya looked skeptical. "Recognizes or tests its new prison?" Jamie held up a hand, silencing the debate before it began. The questions multiplied faster than they could find answers. "Let's see if it cooperates. Harper, can your team safely sedate it from outside?" "Standard meds might not work on alien physiology, but we can adapt something," Harper confirmed. "We'll have a low-impact dose ready within minutes." As the medics worked, Jamie watched the snaggart's movements with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. Its intelligence was unsettling, its actions deliberate, measured. This was no mindless creature, but something more. It sent a shiver down his spine to realize that even their most cautious plans might be entirely insufficient. The sedative was ready, a faint hiss echoing as it was injected into the containment unit. The snaggart's response was immediate. With a jarring screech that echoed through the ship's hull, it recoiled, smashing its segmented body against the far wall of its enclosure. "It's not working," Harper gasped, watching in dismay as the creature thrashed in a frenzy of agitated movement. The medic scrambled for controls. "Increasing the dosage. Captain!" Jamie knew her request even before it was voiced. "Get in there. I'll cover you." Harper didn't need the order twice. With practiced speed, she donned a bulky enviro suit, an extra injector clutched in her gloved hand. The containment hatch slid open, and Jamie gripped his sidearm, his heart pounding against his ribs as he watched the medic step inside. The Snaggart, weakened but far from subdued, turned towards Harper. Its glowing eyes seemed to burn through the helmet, calculating. Jamie tensed, ready to fire, yet no attack came. Instead, with a sinuous motion that belied its bulk, the creature shifted, exposing a portion of its battered underside. Jamie lowered his sidearm, confusion warring with instinct. Harper, equally taken aback, hesitated before cautiously approaching. She crouched low, keeping her voice soft as she spoke. "Easy there. It's okay. We're just going to help you." The Snaggart held its position, the exposed area revealing a network of pulsing lesions, signs of an unknown disease or internal injury. Hesitantly, Harper reached out, gently placing the injector against the tender flesh. A shudder rippled through the creature's body, but it made no move to attack. With the injection complete, a wave of relief washed over Jamie. Moments later, the Snaggart's thrashing slowed, its movements growing sluggish. Finally, with a last shuddering sigh, it slumped to the floor, succumbing to the sedative. "Well, I'll be," Anya whispered over the comms. It trusted her." Harper emerged from the containment unit, a mix of exhilaration and weariness written across her face. The creature's physiology is fascinating, remarkably resilient, yet hypersensitive in certain areas. This might explain its distress. Pain, not aggression, led it to seek contact. As the medics secured the sedated Snaggart for examination, Jamie found himself staring at the empty enclosure, his mind buzzing. The encounter unsettled him. Trust? Mutual understanding? It was supposed to be a simple rescue, but with every minute that ticked by, simple seemed further and further from the truth. "Captain," Anya's voice broke into his thoughts. "We've got a problem. Multiple unidentified vessels just jumped into the system. Their trajectory," she swallowed hard, "they're heading straight for us." A surge of adrenaline coursed through Jamie's veins. The abrupt arrival of unknown ships, mere minutes after their seemingly peaceful encounter with the Snaggart, set off a chain reaction of alarm bells in his mind. This was no coincidence. "Anya, full sensor sweep. I want to know who we're dealing with and how the hell they found us this fast," he barked into the comm. "Helm, evasive maneuvers, defense, get those shield generators online yesterday." The bridge of the Reach exploded with activity. Warning lights flashed as the crew scrambled to their stations. The hum of the ship's engines intensified a notch, pushing them reluctantly from the asteroid field, the silhouette of the young Snaggart still visible on the external scanners. Anya's voice cut in, terse and focused. "Captain, I'm picking up 3 medium-sized vessels, military configs, and no recognized markings." A note of dread crept into her tone. "They're not traitors? Not any established faction I recognize?" "Scavengers?" Jamie muttered, his mind racing with possibilities. Perhaps these scavengers tracked the unusual energy signature emitted by the Snaggart, hoping to capture it. If so, they wouldn't take kindly to outsiders intervening. "Could be worse," Anya said grimly. "Sir, I'm detecting weapons fire. There's something else out there, something big, and it's attacking the Snaggart formation." Jamie's stomach churned as the pieces snapped into place. This wasn't about simple salvage. These unknown assailants were here for a reason connected to the Snaggarts, perhaps drawn by the dying cries of the young creature. And now, the Reach and its crew were squarely caught in the middle of something terrifyingly large. "All hands, prepare for hostile engagement," he snapped, a sense of weary resignation settling over him. "We're going to have to fight our way out of this one." A tense energy rippled through the command deck as the ship readied itself for combat. The once peaceful hum of mining machinery was replaced with the whirring of shield generators and the clang of weapon systems locking into place. Yet, beneath the disciplined action, a flicker of fear danced in the eyes of the crew. This wasn't a scenario any of them had trained for, fighting unknown enemies over an alien creature deep in an uncharted territory. Anya's voice cut through the tension, relaying sensor updates with a practiced calm. "Targets have acquired the Snaggart shell. They're initiating bombardment. I don't recognize the weaponry. Some kind of high-energy pulses?" Jamie watched in grim fascination as the sensor display flared with unnatural light. The massive outer shell of the Snaggart glowed, then shattered at points of impact, sending a cascade of rocky debris across space. His instincts screamed to pull away, to preserve his ship and crew, but a deeper loyalty twisted in his gut. Leaving the young creature to die after they'd brought it on board, it wasn't an option he could stomach. "Helm, hold position," he ordered, ignoring the startled looks from the flight crew. "Target their weapons. Defensive fire only. Try to drive them back." The Reach shuddered as its modest turrets spat bursts of laser fire towards the unknown ships. The counterattack was little more than a nuisance, a desperate plea to be noticed, to make the enemy see them as a threat. To his surprise, it seemed to work. One of the ships, battered by the barrage, broke formation, turning its sights towards the Reach. He watched with trepidation as a ripple of energy surged along its hull, a weapon unlike anything he had ever witnessed. "Incoming!" Anya screeched. "Brace for I don't know what!" A wave of force unlike any physical impact swept over the ship. Alarms wailed, consoles sparked, and crew members were thrown from their seats. Jamie slammed against the command chair, a jolt of pain shooting through his body, followed by a disconcerting numbness. When his vision cleared, the display showed the Reach adrift, shields flickering erratically. The attacking ships seemed momentarily stunned, but were already regrouping for another strike. And behind them, the young Snaggart, freed from its rocky prison, drifted helplessly, exposed and vulnerable. Chaos reigned aboard the Reach. The alien energy pulse had wreaked havoc, knocking out internal communications and sending vital systems haywire. Jamie struggled to his feet, a wave of nausea washing over him as the ship groaned under the relentless barrage of energy blasts. "Damage report!" he roared over the blaring alarms. Frantic voices crackled back over the comm, a litany of malfunctions echoing in the bridge. "Shields at 20% and failing. Main reactor destabilizing. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 5. His heart sank. They were on the verge of being blasted into oblivion. With a strangled curse, Jamie surveyed the tactical display. The attacking ships, seemingly impervious to their counterattacks, were zeroing in for the kill. The young Snaggart, defenseless, was caught in the crossfire. A desperate plan sparked in his mind, a reckless gamble fueled by a surge of protective instinct. "Anya, cut power to non-essential systems. Divert everything to engines." His voice rang with a determination that belied his internal turmoil. "Captain, you can't be serious," Anya replied, alarm evident in her tone. "That'll knock out our defenses completely." Time felt like quicksand slipping through his grasp. "Trust me," he growled. "Helm, target the asteroid field. Plot a crash coup." His words were cut short as a blinding flash seared the sensors. The Reach shuddered violently, an agonizing scream of tortured metal ripping through its hull. The bridge lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness, broken only by the eerie crimson glow of emergency systems. "Main reactor! Critical!" A terrified voice choked in the darkness. "Anya." Jamie's voice barely a whisper now. "Status?" Silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the rasping breaths of the crew and the ceaseless groan of their damaged ship. Then, a flicker of light pierced the gloom as Anya's console sputtered back to life. Her voice, strained but alive, pierced the heavy silence. "Captain, we're in the asteroid field. I don't know how. Systems are a mess, but we're alive." Relief mingled with a creeping dread as Jamie surveyed the wreckage that was once his command deck. Sparks danced across mangled consoles, casting grotesque shadows against the twisted metal beams. Miraculously, his crew was alive, battered but breathing. They had survived, but just barely. "Anya, full sensor sweep, and someone bring me a flashlight," he rasped, his voice raw. A dim beam of light cut through the darkness, illuminating a scene of utter devastation. It was a testament to their ship's original sturdiness that any of them lived to tell the tale. As systems flickered back to life, the grim reality became clear. The Reach was all but crippled, shields were offline, the main reactor spluttered erratically, and internal communications were spotty at best. And as the light from the flashlight swept across the asteroid field, Jamie's heart caught in his throat. The young Snaggart, battered and vulnerable, floated amongst the debris, seemingly unharmed by the chaos. However, the attacking ships had regrouped, their predatory silhouettes stark against the blackness of space. It wouldn't be long before they finished the job their initial attack had started. Anya's voice cut through the tension. Captain, they're mobilizing again. With our weapons offline, there's no way we can... She trailed off, unwilling to utter the inevitable. A wave of bitter frustration washed over Jamie. They had taken a risk, a monumental risk, to save a creature, and now they were all about to pay the ultimate price for it. Yet, a flicker of defiance sparked in his eyes. This wasn't over. Not yet. Helm, can we maneuver at all? He asked, his voice laced with a desperate hope. A tense silence followed, then a flicker of a response. Negative, sir. Propulsion, it's mostly slag. I can give you some attitude control, but that's about it. Jamie absorbed the blow, his mind racing. They couldn't fight. They could barely move, but the asteroid field, could it be used to their advantage after all? An idea, as wild and improbable as their entire situation, began to take shape. Anya, scan the asteroids, Jamie ordered, his voice crackling with a mix of desperation and calculated strategy. I need density readings, mass, everything you can find. Anya blinked, confusion momentarily overriding her usual focus. But sir, with our sensor arrays damaged, and the debris... Just do it, Jamie snapped. I have an idea. Might be the craziest thing we've ever tried, but it's all we've got left. He turned to the helm officer, a tense, young woman named Ellis. Once Anya finds us a target, I want you to give me a nudge, just enough to set us on a collision course. Can you do that? Ellis looked momentarily bewildered before the spark of understanding ignited in her eyes. A grim smile creased her lips. Aye, Captain. Just point me in the right direction. A flurry of activity pulsed through the damaged bridge. Jamie braced himself against the command chair, a mix of fear and resolute defiance surging through him. They were going to turn their crippled ship into a makeshift projectile using the dense rocks of the asteroid field as both shield and final desperate weapon. Anya's voice cut through the tense silence. Captain, I've got something. There's a large asteroid, incredibly high density reading. If we impact... Jamie didn't need her to finish. This wasn't about winning, about driving off the enemy. It was about buying time, about protecting the strange young creature they had gambled everything on. It was about defiance, a final act of resistance against impossible odds. Mark it, he roared. Helm, prepare for impact. The Reach groaned in protest as the last of its auxiliary thrusters pushed them towards the chosen target. The asteroid loomed larger and larger in the viewports, its rough, pitted surface a testament to countless eons in deep space. Brace for impact! Jamie's voice boomed through the battered ship. The collision was brutal, a cacophony of twisting metal and shattering rock. The jolt sent crew members flying despite crash harnesses. Alarms screamed in discord, then abruptly fell silent as all remaining systems were violently knocked offline. Jamie was thrown headfirst into the remains of the tactical console, the searing pain followed by blissful darkness. A flicker of movement on the sensor display caught Jamie's eye. He squinted, struggling to focus amidst the throbbing pain in his skull and the disorienting spin of the crippled Reach. The young Snaggart, amidst the swirling chaos of shattered rock and splintered metal, wasn't merely drifting. It was moving. With purpose, each subtle shift of its segmented body seemed to correlate with an asteroid veering off course. At first it seemed random, yet a pattern began to emerge. Asteroids ricocheted off each other, hurtling towards the enemy ships with uncanny accuracy. Anya, zoom in. What is it doing? Jamie rasped, struggling to his feet amidst the wreckage of his bridge. The crew members, bruised but defiantly alive, scrambled back to their mangled stations. Anya gasped. It's guiding the debris, Captain! Like projectiles! Jamie felt a surge of disbelief battling the adrenaline. Impossible. Surely not. Yet the evidence unfolded before his eyes. The young Snaggart, its tendrils rippling with bioluminescent energy, was orchestrating the chaos. It wasn't a helpless infant. It was a tactical genius, using the very forces aimed at its destruction as a weapon. A shout echoed from the sensor station. One of the enemy ships. Hull breaches. It's taking heavy damage. Elation, raw and primal, bubbled up within Jamie. They weren't finished yet. He turned to the helm. Ellis, can you give me any kind of control, even a short burst? The young woman nursing a bleeding head wound met his gaze with fierce determination. Just a nudge, Captain. That's all I can manage. And then it's up to gravity. Jamie nodded, a grim smile cracking his swollen lips. He scanned the remaining monitors, a frantic plan taking shape in his mind. Anya, target the largest chunk of debris you can find. Get me a trajectory. He watched as she furiously plotted a course, taking into account the crippled Reach's momentum and the relentless chaos of the asteroid field. Ready? She called, a nervous edge to her voice. Helm, give me 15 seconds of thrust, now! Jamie roared, slamming his fist down on the wreckage of the command console. The Reach shuddered in a final defiant protest, kicking the ship into a perilous course. On the display, Jamie's heart pounded in his chest as their path lined up perfectly with Anya's calculated trajectory. And there, hurtling towards them, was a massive chunk of asteroid, a makeshift battering ram. He braced himself. This was it, their final play against overwhelming odds. And in the center of it all, the young Snaggart, the catalyst for this desperate gamble, weaved its segmented body. With a final, precise ripple, the Snaggart nudged the massive asteroid. Collision. A blinding flash of light, a deafening roar. Then, silence. Jamie awoke to darkness, a dull ache throbbing in his skull. Groaning, he fumbled for a light, a sense of dread gnawing at him. Had they survived? The silence was ominous, broken only by the ragged breaths of his crew echoing in the ruined shell of their ship. Anya! His voice cracked with disuse. Anyone there? Flickers of light pierced the darkness as emergency systems sputtered to life. The scene that greeted him was one of absolute devastation. The bridge was a twisted war zone of shattered consoles and exposed wiring, yet, through the cracked viewports, a different scene played out. The asteroid field, once a swirling vortex of debris and metal, seemed oddly still. Sir, you need to see this. Anya's voice rasped from a comm unit barely clinging to life. He dragged himself across the wreckage towards the viewport, his heart pounding with a mix of apprehension and anticipation. The sight that greeted him made him gasp. The enemy ships were gone, not crippled, annihilated. Debris marked the spots where they once hovered menacingly. And in the distance, the young Snaggart floated serenely, its bioluminescent glow pulsing in vibrant rhythmic patterns. It was unharmed, victorious. But how? Jamie whispered, disbelief flooding him. They had been hopelessly outmatched, seconds from obliteration. Yet somehow they had prevailed. Anya, her face streaked with grime, offered a shaky smile. Remember what you said, Captain? About taking precautions, doing everything by the book? Well, sometimes you gotta rip up the rulebook and throw a giant rock instead. A wave of bittersweet triumph washed over him. Their recklessness, their decision to save a creature of unknown origin, had somehow saved them in turn. He surveyed the ruined bridge, the echoes of injured crew members beginning to stir. They had paid a heavy price, but they had survived against unthinkable odds. Just as hope began to flicker, a sharp spike hit the sensor array. Jamie and Anya exchanged a grim look. Survivors? Enemy reinforcements? His fingers hovered over a battered weapons panel, ready for one final desperate act. Then the sensor readout clarified. A single blip appeared, growing rapidly larger. It was a ship, but of a design Jamie had never encountered before. Sleek, angular, and bearing the same distinct bioluminescence as the Snaggart. Captain? Anya's voice was thick with awe. I think we might have some visitors. A tense silence enveloped the bridge as the unknown ship grew larger, its bioluminescent markings shimmering in the void. It dwarfed the Reach, even in its battered state. There was a grace, a restrained power in its movements that sent shivers down Jamie's spine. This was not a rescue, but a reckoning. He swallowed hard, his mind racing with possibilities. Had they unwittingly committed an act of aggression against the adult Snaggarts? Was this retribution for interfering in some natural rite of passage? Anya, hail them! He barked, straightening to project an air of authority despite his aching body. It's not responding, sir, Anya replied, her voice tight with anxiety. I'm getting no standard comm frequencies. She hesitated. There's a signal, but I can't decipher it. It's unlike anything in the database. The massive ship loomed ever closer. With a jolt of dread, Jamie realized it could obliterate their crippled vessel without breaking a sweat. Their gamble had led them to this precipice, survival dependent on the whim of a powerful alien force. Suddenly, the young Snaggart, silent until now, began to pulse with frantic energy. Its tendrils reached out, not towards the ship, but towards the remains of the Reach. Jamie watched in stunned silence as a ripple shot through the battered hull. To his amazement, the ship's damaged systems flickered to life. Lights sputtered on, comm channels crackled. It's bridging with our systems, Anya exclaimed, disbelief in her voice. The unknown ship slowed, its angular form hovering just beyond the asteroid field. Then, the comm console blared to life, not with beeps and crackles, but with a voice, or rather, a presence, that filled the bridge, resonating within their very minds. It was deep, resonant, layered with a complexity that defied language. The crew froze, exchanging wide-eyed looks. This was not an exchange of words, but of images, sensations, an outpouring of raw concepts. And at the center of this torrent was the young Snaggart translating, mediating, its bioluminescence mirroring the intensity of the exchange. Jamie felt a wave of understanding wash over him, not of specific words, but of intent, gratitude, recognition, an acknowledgement of kinship. The adult Snaggart wasn't here to chastise, but to connect. As the overwhelming mental exchange subsided, a sense of dazed wonder settled over the crew. It wasn't just communication, it was a glimpse into an entirely different form of sentience. The Snaggarts, they realized with awe, possessed an intelligence far deeper than mere instinct. Anya was the first to break the silence. "Captain, they know. They know what we did." Jamie nodded, his mind swimming with the implications. They hadn't simply rescued a creature, they had preserved a potent force, a key to understanding and perhaps even interacting with a legendary reclusive species. The young Snaggart pulsed with contentment, its tendrils gently brushing against the battered hull of the Reach, as if offering reassurance. The adult ship responded in kind, its bioluminescent glow shifting and changing, mirroring the pattern. A new wave of images poured into Jamie's mind, damaged systems, injuries, a plea, and an offer. "They're suggesting repairs." Anya sounded both amazed and deeply skeptical. The notion was absurd. How could this strange alien craft possibly mend their battered mining ship, which even advanced human technology would struggle to fix? Yet, the young Snaggart pulsed with eagerness, mirroring the larger ship's intent. Jamie felt a surge of reckless optimism. They had already defied the odds once. Why not again? "The docking ring," he rasped, wincing as pain shot through his injured ribs. "It's the only space large enough. Open it. Let's see what they can do." There was no hesitation, no argument. Survival had reshaped his crew. With the hiss of hydraulics, the ship's damaged docking ring extended, a maw opening in the otherwise mangled hull. To Jamie's astonishment, the larger Snaggart vessel responded, slowly maneuvering itself not into the ring itself, but above it. Tendrils unfurled from the larger ship, glowing with an intensity that made the young Snaggart's luminosity seem gentle. The appendages descended, weaving themselves around the damaged hull of the Reach. Damaged wiring buzzed with renewed energy, mangled metal thrummed and began to reform. The young Snaggart danced amidst the process, coordinating, translating the intent flowing from its elder. The crew watched in awestruck silence. This wasn't repair, it was regeneration. The Snaggart ship was infusing the Reach with something that defied understanding. In a matter of hours, a process that should have taken weeks in the best human dockyards was near completion. When it was over, the Reach was forever changed. Scarred and patched, it was also stronger, more resilient, imbued with an otherworldly energy. As the tendrils withdrew and the massive ship gently retreated, the bridge was filled with a sense of dazed unreality. Their world had tilted on its axis. The Snaggarts were not the solitary, destructive force of legend, but a complex species with an intelligence humanity had barely begun to fathom. Jamie cleared his throat, struggling to find the right words. "Anya," he began, his voice hoarse. "Record everything, every detail of that repair process, every sensor reading you can pick up. This has the potential to change everything. The implications were staggering. If they could harness this knowledge, replicate the strange energy the Snaggarts wielded, it could revolutionize their understanding of technology, of space travel itself. And yet, a nagging unease lingered in his mind. This wasn't just a scientific breakthrough, it was a bridge built between species. The young Snaggart nudged at the hull, its form shimmering with gratitude, with a sense of belonging. Jamie found himself staring at the creature, his mind reeling. They had set out to rescue a creature in distress, fulfilling a basic sense of compassion amidst the cold expanse of space. But what emerged was something far greater, a responsibility. "Captain!" Anya's voice cut through his thoughts, an echo of that shared sentiment. "What do we do now?" The answer hung heavy in the air. This wasn't a discovery, it was a first contact of unprecedented scale. And this young Snaggart, the catalyst, was the embodiment of that connection. Jamie looked at his crew, their faces alight with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. They had been miners, driven by profit, scraping resources from uncaring rocks. But now, they were something else entirely. "We bring it home," Jamie affirmed, his voice resonating with a determination he hadn't felt since their first reckless foray into the unknown. "We go back to Earth, to headquarters, and we tell them the incredible, impossible tale of the Snaggart's heart." This wasn't merely a scientific find, a potential boost to their civilization's might. It was a testament to the heart of humanity itself, that compassion and bravery in the face of overwhelming odds could reshape the stars. The return journey to Earth was a whirlwind of hushed conferences, frantic data analysis, and quiet awe shared among the crew. Gone were the routine reports and mundanity of asteroid mining. Instead, they carried within them the seeds of an interstellar shift, a fundamental change in humanity's understanding of their place in the cosmos. News of their encounter, though carefully guarded at first, spread through official channels with the speed and intensity of a solar flare. High-level delegations descended upon the Reach, initially skeptical, then breathless with amazement as they observed the young Snaggart and the ship's bizarre modifications. The Snaggart was the undeniable star, a biological Rosetta Stone. Scientists clamored to study it, to decipher the secrets of its species' unique ability to manipulate matter and energy. Military strategists eyed its raw power, imagining a world where human warships were infused with that same resilience. Yet, as Jamie had feared, amidst the excitement lurked a predatory undercurrent. Whispers arose: exploit the creature, monopolize the technology, seize control of this cosmic advantage. Fear mingled with fascination, an age-old formula potent enough to ignite conflict not just between nations, but potentially between worlds. Jamie stood amidst the maelstrom, a weary island of resolve. He had rescued the creature out of compassion, but now, its very existence threatened to unleash the worst in humanity. It couldn't be a lab specimen, a dissected secret. It was a symbol of a possible alliance, a key to interspecies communication on a level never before imagined. The battles he fought in those tense months were not in remote asteroid fields, but in pristine boardrooms and the hallowed halls of government. He argued passionately, bolstered by Anya's relentless research and the quiet, watchful presence of the young Snaggart itself. It was a testament to his stubbornness, and perhaps the creature's own unnerving intelligence, that resistance slowly began to crumble. The breakthrough came, ironically, from an unexpected source. The world's greatest linguists and xenobiologists, initially obsessed with the physical, began to focus on the creature's unique patterns of bioluminescence. Incredibly, they detected structure, an underlying system of communication far more complex than anything they had encountered. The day the young Snaggart spoke its first tentative, translated words, the world held its breath. It wasn't a plea, a threat, or a scientific breakthrough. Its message pierced through the fear and ambition. "Why, did you help?" The question hung in the air, resonating across the globe. It was a mirror, reflecting humanity's own complicated motivations. Jamie saw the dawning shift in powerful eyes, a flicker of introspection amidst the grasping calculation. It wasn't the technology, not the power, but the simple act, the choice to show compassion that had the potential to truly change everything.